the Art Box Podcast, where creativity lives, but more importantly, where stories are told. I'm your host, Steve, and here we believe every piece of art carries a story, and every artist has one worth sharing. From theater and song to archaeology and to our public lands, we explore the many ways creativity shows up in the world around us. Because I'm always happy to view a work of art, but I'm never fully satisfied until I've heard the story behind it. That's what we're all about, unpacking the journeys, the moments, the people, and the meaning that bring art to life. So whether you're an artist, a storyteller, or simply curious, pull up a chair. Let's open the box.
Oh, effortlessly beautiful. That's Venus and being you.
Hey everybody, this is Steve from the Art Box. Today we're going to welcome Chester Liwosz. He's an archaeologist for Warm Springs Geovisions, based in Oregon. He's under contract to Statham Limited to do Archaeoacoustics as part of the Lincoln County Archaeology Initiative Round 14 project for the BLM in Basin and Range National Monument. Yanni and I have been working with Chester in the field the last 4 days, having enjoyed his knowledge, work ethic, and happy nature. I'm happy to grab a table on the patio of the Alamo Hotel this evening and have a chat with Chester. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy. Welcome to the Art Box. We are with Chester Liwosz. Hi, Chester. And you come from, well, right now you live in Portland.
I live in Portland, Oregon.
And right now, Chester's having a hazy IPA. And we're sitting outside in beautiful Alamo, Nevada at the Alamo Inn. There's cars going by on Route 93, and there's an air conditioner running behind us. So we'll have to deal with that. So, Chester, want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah. 6'2", red hair.
Very red hair. I'm jealous, man.
So I'm an archaeologist by trade and do a bunch of hobbies on the side because, you got to stay a well-rounded person. Been wanting to do archaeology since I was in first grade, and was the only first grader in my class who knew how to spell it. The proper way, the British way, with the AE, of course. I've had lots of different directions that my life might have otherwise gone, or that I might have tried to explore. There's been a certain gravity to this career path that has always just drawn me back in.
Yeah, because you said when we were talking, and we've worked together, 3-4 days now, so we've been talking back and forth, and you, like Yanni, you quit archaeology for a little while.
I was about to. I was right on the precipice there. I was trying. I was actively looking for jobs that I could apply my skill sets in different ways. I had just come off of a series of archaeology jobs that had started off great and then kind of burned me in the end. And so I was looking for a change, and then had this great opportunity come up with Geovisions, which is a wholly tribally owned CRM firm based out of Warm Springs up in Oregon.
Oh, so it's tribally owned.
It's tribally owned. And a big part of why I was hired was with this plan to train tribal members to be staff. So we're moving forward with that. We're looking at doing a field school this summer, and I mean, it's a dream come true because it's putting my skill sets both for archaeology and teaching to good use, and to do something that really directly benefits the community. So even though I was ready to step out the door of archaeology, getting this offer, I couldn't say no.
Where would you have gone though? What other job?
I mean, that's
it may have been boring.
I kind of feel like there could be a niche in the workforce ecosystem for folks who can provide training to working professionals.
Okay.
As much as I really love teaching, I feel for lots of reasons, the train's kind of left the station on any kind of tenure track post. But I thought about developing educational materials for working professionals. And my brother's master's thesis is on the integration of teaching technologies in classrooms. And so I was thinking about technology integration in the workforce. and trying to think about how one might develop materials to help make, like I said, working professionals more proficient with the technologies they're using and get more out of them. One of the things that my brother observed is that, like, say in a classroom setting, teachers will learn the tools well enough to be able to do specific tasks, again, in the classroom, specifically geared towards, like, their curriculum and teaching that. And that means that they really don't harness the power of the tools that they're using. And so the idea is to go beyond just the sort of goal-oriented stuff. Through the next tier is kind of learning what it can do and learning broader applications, and then the ultimate tier beyond that is actually innovating upon those technologies, and that's where we want to get. Not everyone would be able to reach that level, but even to get everyone that step up from just doing the direct task-oriented stuff to becoming more familiar with the technologies they have and the broader uses, the greater power that they have in their hands, so that they are more equipped to do problem solving and to apply these things in novel ways. Really using your brain more. And I think it's a thing that we all do. And this is a commentary on, like, teaching pedagogies. It's a thing that we all do. We learn the technology well enough for what we're trying to do with it, and we don't have the bandwidth to do more. So I was thinking that I could do something like that, because I really do enjoy technology's integration, and I love virtual reality stuff. So one of the taglines that I've used in my conference presentations and in some of my more fun research, like we've been doing out here in the Veronica, is virtual heritage management. So using these digital representations, whether it's photos, sound, 3D models, and using that as a very highly detailed, verbose record of what's out there, and in a level that is no longer just a record, but that we can bring a piece of that cultural heritage, whether it's an archaeological site or a historical building, or even something more abstract, like an oral tradition. We can bring it to both, like, youth and elders who otherwise might not have access to it. I think that's both important for kind of keeping these things going and reconnecting them with where they come from, and also of that youth engagement. So that's a part of why I was, like, really drawn to this opportunity with GeoVisions, because I could see a real opportunity for that engagement with, in this case, not necessarily like high school youth, like I was doing in New Mexico, but still with folks who are, like, in that 18 to 25 bracket, who might be taking an interest in managing their own cultural heritage. And I'm hoping that as this program develops to be able to do some of that technology's integration and that technology's pedagogy, because I think when you hand the tools to people and get them comfortable with learning the tools and familiar with what the tool can do beyond your immediate problems, then you'll start to see people innovating, and then they'll come up with solutions that you didn't think about.
Yeah, well, that's where the curiosity comes in.
Exactly.
Because you can teach, but can you teach curiosity?
Curiosity is a precious commodity these days.
I mean, so the teacher comes in, or professor, and teaches to A through C. I shouldn't say A through Z. I should pick letters in the middle of the alphabet, because on either side they can expand if they have the curiosity. I would see where some professors might be, well, maybe some don't care, but I would think they would become disappointed if they teach something and that's all the students leave the class with is what they taught.
Yeah, and so when I was teaching at the university level, I really did try to leave essays as one of the capstone projects for each course as a means by which that could be accomplished. Where, like, yes, I want to see, like, some engagement with the class text, but I want you to also pick out an article or two that I did not assign in this class and teach me about it as you're doing your essay.
Perfect. Yes, I love that. So tell me about, we'll drop out of this, we'll come back to archaeology, obviously, but you almost hit on it earlier. Tell me what 6-year-old Chester was doing.
He was being royal pain in the butt. That's what he was. Can I cuss on here?
You just don't say the F word.
All right.
You can.
I'll try to hold back. I'll try to use polite words, but if something slips out.
Oh, that's fine.
6-year-old me was going around the playground picking out fossils from the gravel.
Oh, were you really? Okay.
Yeah. And so, like, you brought this lovely illustration by your friend here, laminated in front of us. So we've got the geologic layers all the way from the Holocene back to the Archaean. Organized by their epochs. So you've got the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic, and then So I had learned a couple of the common fossils that you'd find in gravels that were being distributed around Ohio, and like crinoids. Crinoids were one of my favorites. I loved snails, and that comes into play when I get a little bit older. When I was like in 8th grade doing science fair.
You can move up to 8th grade. You don't have to stick at 6 years old.
Oh, I mean 6 years old. Like we could talk about crinoids,
but you
and mollusks.
You had curiosity when you're 6 years old.
I had so much curiosity in 6-year-old that my pockets were full of fossils from the playground gravel. So much so that it was too heavy. It ripped out the pockets while I was getting on the school bus, and it just spilled fossils all over. The bus driver was so cross with me. I had to go to the principal's office for that.
That's fantastic. What a way to start.
Yeah. So you can tell curiosity was always a part of it.
Yeah.
And then 8th grade me was obsessed with snails. So I did a science fair project in 8th grade that involved aquatic snails, living ones this time.
Okay.
Like not fossilized.
Did you have a lot of streams around the house? And
no, there was just like a little back area with there was a spring out on the neighbor's horse farm, and it fed into this little wetland. It wasn't really on our property, but there wasn't anything built back there. Like the property owner visited once a year to go hunting in November, so it was otherwise. If it wasn't November, it was like just kind of free kid exploring. But not really many fossils in it.
Okay.
More brush and brambles.
Brambles. We always had tadpoles, and I always loved that.
I love amphibians. I miss my axolotls. I had one of my pandemic hobbies was raising axolotls. Why not?
What's an axolotl?
It's so an axolotl is a neotenic salamander, and the thing is that they're descended from tiger salamanders, and tiger salamanders have this habit of they'll find a body of water that they like, and they'll start hanging out there, and then they will just stop maturing into their adult form and stay in a juvenile form but reach sexual maturity and reproduce. So like axolotl is specifically the species that evolved in Lake Texcoco in central Mexico, and it probably evolved as people were farming in the Chinampas there, because it tends to like that kind of habitat of plants that you can hide in, roots, stalks, maybe a few rocks and little caves and nooks. So it probably did like co-evolve with people developing farming at Lake Texcoco. But tiger salamanders have also done this in Oaxaca, where there's a lake there where they've done the same thing, and the species there is called pechoques, and they are visually indistinguishable from axolotls. Tiger salamanders have also done this at a abandoned quarry, and I think it's in Wisconsin, but don't quote me on that. Upper Midwest is no man's land to me. No offense to anyone who's up there. So there was a quarry up there that had filled with water, and the state was about to start remediating it to, drain it and try to do some habitat restoration. What they found is that this tiger salamander had started hanging out there and had, in a period of 50 years, speciated and developed kind of an axolotl thing, a neotenic salamander that doesn't reach maturity and just stays in the water with its little paddle-shaped tail. And so that created like a whole extra level of complexity to like, how do you remediate this?
Yes, I'm sure, if it's very happy there.
Yeah, it's an endemic species, so like you would be destroying the only habitat where this species happens to exist. So I think this is a really cool thing about tiger salamanders, and I will be raising axolotls again.
Yeah.
Not yet, though.
Not yet?
Not yet.
So, well, you're up here, and you're working for Bureau of Land Management, and Yanni in particular with Stratum Unlimited, and you're up here doing acoustics archaeology. Is that a word?
Yes, archaeoacoustics.
Archaeoacoustics. What's it mean?
Depends who you ask.
God, isn't that great to have a career where it depends who you ask?
Yeah, it's a relatively new field, so we're all like the few archaeoacousticians who are out there are all trying to sort out what it is we're doing, and so there's this negotiation about like, since it's such a new thing and such a small community of people who do this around the world, we each have our own approaches, our own questions that we would like to highlight, but then there's this other side of things where acoustical engineering is a well-established discipline. And so we can borrow from that, and that really gives us these systematic processes. And so there are folks who would argue that we need to get in line with the measures of the acoustical engineering. And I think that there is something to be said for that, because if we have standard measures, then we can compare notes. We can check each other's work. We can compare notes. But then there's another side of things. So, like, that would be like the work of Margarita Diaz-Andreu out of the University of Barcelona. But then you also have some folks who are more into the qualitative side, I'm having a little bit of aphasia on his name, but there's a guy who's been doing Orthodox churches in Russia and Eastern Europe since the 1990s, and his approach is definitely much more qualitative, and I think there's room for both. And this is not to fall into the middle ground fallacy, but rather like having these quantitative measures makes the results reproducible and intelligible to our peers who might be working in different regions. But those qualitative aspects, I think, are necessary even in the experiment design stage, because that helps us relate what we're observing to the cultural traditions in the areas that we're working. And so that's something that we're really trying to integrate on this study, which is that both quantitative and qualitative approach, and the two are synergistic in other ways. Is like we've been experiencing today. Today was a particularly windy day. The desert's always windy, especially in the spring, but today was particularly windy, and so when that happens, of course, there's lots of interference on these microphones, but you can still use your ears and make verbal notes on your audio recording. So even if the recording is clipping from the wind and you're not getting a good analytic sample, you can still use your qualitative observations and put that on the audio track. And we've been doing that these last...
Yeah, I appreciate days. You've almost made me feel like I was helping.
Oh, you're absolutely helping.
As we're walking and making notes while we're walking, what do I hear?
Yeah. Yeah, you'll start commenting, and I'll just straight up ask you, can you describe the microphone?
And where's it bouncing off of? What first sparked your curiosity about sound influencing ancient human behavior?
Problem solving. So, and this is going to be a long roundabout story. Back when I was starting grad school, my initial dissertation project was actually supposed to be something completely different in Mesoamerica, with the hard sciencey stuff of like obsidian sourcing and chert. And everyone says you can't source chert. But like challenge accepted, right? So it was like I was trying to develop some project related to like the differential distribution networks between lithic toolstones and ceramics, because there's just these massive data sets down there for like obsidian sources and ceramic sources. So I figure if I could do a little bit of analysis for chert and add that in, and then otherwise pull from the literature and the existing collections, I'd have a project to say. But due to a number of factors outside of my control, that project started to look untenable and did become untenable. And so during that time, I also was sitting on some data that I had since Death Valley so by this point it had only been a couple of years. If we're putting me at like early on in grad school, so I had this data from a petroglyph site in the Death Valley area, Slot Canyon, and I started looking at it as a pet project for just one of my classes that I was taking at the time, and so I was starting to do some analysis and starting to do some background research on this. So this question started to emerge of like, well, what I'm observing is at odds with the literature I'm reading. And it turns out some of the literature I was reading has been since refuted. That's a whole other side. But like, the question is like, what, if the literature is saying that folks in this area were like only doing scratch designs, not pecked designs, but like I'm looking at this data and there's some really like fresh pecked petroglyphs. Like some of the freshest petroglyphs were pecked rather than weren't any scratched images at that site. So it's like, well, why does this break the trend? And I saw a talk by John Rick. He came to speak at Santa Cruz about work that he and his team was doing down at Chavin de Wantar. And his grad student, Miriam Kohler, who's now an editor at SAR Press in Santa Fe, Miriam was doing an acoustic study of the absolutely monumental religious site of Chavin de Wantar. And a light bulb went off because I could remember, again, it had only been about like 2-3 years since I had been to this Death Valley Slot Canyon, and so my memory was still fairly fresh at the time of walking through parts of it, my feet crunching on the gravel in certain narrow areas was reverberating off the canyon walls. So I thought, well, sound. I mean, this is drumming. Like, you don't really get a drum tradition out here that's like a plains thing. Eastern Pueblo's very, very late when that transferred. But it didn't get out here, right? So it's like, oh, but there's your percussion, right? It's the petroglyphs themselves. So yeah, like the light bulb went off, and I did a proposal to do a pilot study in 2014. But the light bulb went off with seeing Miriam Kohler's results at Chavin de Wantar, and I did this pilot study at the Death Valley Slot in 2014. Had my friend who's now up in Winnemucca come join. And
in 2014?
2014.
Were you like 12 years old or something then?
Thank you. I was in grad school. So,
oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah. We did the pilot study up there. It was like, I learned that basically every piece of equipment I took was not appropriate for like a rock climbing canyon, but we were able to get him far enough and do enough of a test that we could demonstrate that not only were there echoes, not only was there reverb, but there was the potential for resonant tones. So like any room is going to have a tone that is a mathematical function of the size and shape of the room, and these are called room modes, and they've been demonstrated like by Paul Devereux, I think, at Neolithic Barrows. But like I had never encountered in the literature room modes at like petroglyph sites in North America. So it's like, this is profound. So I took the next 2 years to really dive back into the acoustic literature as well as the archaeological literature and the rock art literature, and then went back in 2016 for a week of solo canyoneering.
And this is in Death Valley.
This is
in this
Death
particular
Valley area.
canyon. Okay.
Yeah. And I actually did 2 canyons for this one. The other one, we were talking about Fossil Falls by Little Lake in Owens Valley. So culturally related, and of course there's a number of other archaeological sites around these. So I tried to take a landscape approach and include observations of all the sites that I ran into in the area. Like Yanni keeps saying, like, we're not doing a class 3, so this wasn't a class 3, which is an exhaustive inventory for the folks who aren't archaeologists. It just means that, like, you're trying to record everything fully rather than sampling. And I'm like, not doing that, but like I'm focusing on the petroglyph sites. But yeah, so that's how I got into it. And then that's what my dissertation's on. So I finished my dissertation in 2018. I did some petroglyph studies in Hawaii in 2017, but didn't really have the controlled environment to do acoustics at those. What with the military exercises in the immediate vicinity, kind of loud. Then I moved to New Mexico, and I did a couple of small acoustic studies as a part of my much broader work working with the Mesa Prieta Petroglyph Project, based in Velarde, which is a town north of Espanola, so about midway between Santa Fe and Taos, New Mexico, for those who know New Mexico. So the Mesa Prieta Petroglyph Project is primarily volunteer-based organization that has been dedicated towards documenting the petroglyphs of this one mesa that's 32,000 acres. They're still going. I believe the predictive models show that there should be about 100,000 petroglyphs there. When I left the project, I was actually an employee there. I was the project archaeologist at the time. When I left about 2 years ago or so, we were already up to 60,000 separate petroglyphs that had been recorded. And so that's where I did like some of my most recent acoustic studies before this week. And so that's in the Pueblo Southwest, and you see a very different pattern of like how people use the landscape and conceptualize it. And now we're here in the Pronaget, which is like somewhat more similar to my dissertation work, but I think what we're also finding is something that's also distinct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the scale of where we are is just immense. We're having to drive around between research locations, right? So the Death Valley slot is only about half a kilometer long.
Okay.
If you tie it into the surrounding landscape, the sites that I was finding around it, you have an area of about 1.5 kilometers diameter. Little Lake is quite a large archaeological district. You might have a dozen or so sites out there, but like what we're doing here in the Pronaget, like I didn't examine all the sites at Little Lake because some of them are on private land. I only did a small area. What we're doing here at the Pronaget is like
it would take
larger scale.
It would take forever.
Oh yeah. And we're building on the work of folks who have been here. So Steve Waller was here doing some acoustic studies, and Margarita Diaz-Andreo, she was here a few years ago as well. And so we're all working in different parts of the canyon system too. And I think that's really, it's so big, there's more room for other people to do.
Yeah, Yanni's so excited with you because you're also using your ear and you're walking around and you're not relying everything on what you record. He really likes that. Yanni's always, being with him up here as much as I've been, he's always talking about that there's spirits.
Mm-hmm.
So spirits. So when you're working here, are you? And you guys were talking today about the singing, but did the people who hear, the prehistoric peoples here, did they hear others' voices, or did they think they were spirits?
Yeah, that's what the ethnography seems to suggest, is that you have these spirits, these other than human beings that you either hear them from a distance, from the direction of where the doctor's writing, which is their word for petroglyphs. So in the direction of where the doctor's writing is, or they're on the other side of the rock. And by the other side of the rock, I mean not around, but like the surface of the rock is a membrane. One of the metaphors they use is like a shed snakeskin. And just on the other side of that incredibly thin membrane is the spirit world, where these things like water babies dwell. So we've got water babies, we've got so a pizza be some kind of spirit being, but is also a word used for a particular, I think the word is translated as witch, but like loaded word, like kind of a witch who lived out in these parts.
Addy jumping in here for a quick research break. If you were listening closely to Chester just a moment ago, you may have felt it, that sense that some places hold more than what we can see. Out there in the Pahranagat Valley, water is not just water. It gathers quietly. It lingers in springs and seeps. It reflects sky and reed and passing wing, but it also carries stories shared for generations by the southern Paiute people. They speak of water babies. Not as something to explain away, but as something to acknowledge. Small beings, said to live in those desert waters. Sometimes heard before they are seen. Sometimes never seen at all. Their cries, soft, almost human, are said to echo near springs, especially in the hush of early morning or the deepening blue of evening. But the story isn't meant to frighten. It's meant to remind. In a land where water is life, you don't approach it carelessly. You don't assume it belongs to you. You listen. You respect. You understand that something so vital might also be protected. And just beyond those waters, etched into the desert's darker stone, stands another kind of presence. The Pahranagat man. Arms outstretched. A figure both simple and profound. He has no voice we can hear, no movement we can track, and yet, he has endured. Where the water babies belong to motion, ripples, reflections, fleeting glimpses, the Pahranagat man belongs to stillness. He is fixed in place, holding his form against wind, sun, and time itself. Two expressions of the same land. One fluid. One permanent. One whispered. One carved. And perhaps what Chester was helping us understand is that neither of these are separate from the people who came before. These are not just stories or symbols. They are relationships. Relationships between people and water. Between people and place. Between what is seen and what is understood. So when we move through places like Pahranagat, whether as archaeologists, artists, or just curious travelers, we are not just passing through geography. We are stepping into something already in conversation. Something that has been speaking, quietly, patiently, for a very long time. And if you're still enough, you might just hear it. All right, back to you, Steve and Chester.
It can also be your spirit helpers. So for folks who are, everyone's kind of familiar with like animal spirit helpers to some extent, right? You've at least heard of them. And so they're like a personal helper spirit, and that's one of the other spirits that you might be hearing on the other side of the rock is your personal helper spirit. So one of the reasons why you might come out here is to acquire this stuff called puha. For our like Magic the Gathering fans, it's the same thing as mana. Or for folks more familiar with like Eastern religion, like chi, shi, or ki. These are all words describing effectively the same concept of this. It's described as spiritual power, but it typically exists in societies where there's no real Cartesian divide between the material and the ethereal. So spirit power is also animating power. So another way of looking at it is life force, or just the ability to perform action. So it can move things because it can perform action. And so if you're coming out here on Power Quest in order to get Puha, which is this spiritual power, you might want to talk to your helper spirit or talk to some ancestors and acquire a song. And this is very explicit in the ethnographic literature of that song acquisition is directly correlated to power acquisition. And that's one of the things that kind of like really cues in the acoustical significance, because if you come in this place and you can interact with the echoes in any way that helps emphasize song. So the tack that I'm taking on this is that you could have just straight echoes without any of the fancy reverb stuff. But if you position yourself from an echoing surface far enough, you can have the echo come back at you at just about the right delay, maybe like a half beat delay, or even a full beat delay, and it makes it sound like there's an accompaniment. And this is something that we could observe at Mesa Prieta. And Mesa Prieta also has like flute player images, so you've got musical instruments. So if we're coming to a place here, we might think about how like a musical instrument performs. So we were talking about how the eagle bone flutes made it. That's something that the Pueblos do, but it's also something that seems to have happened out here. Is that you could have flutes made from eagle bones, and I was playing that for you earlier, and it was just very high pitched.
Yeah,
right?
very high pitched.
So we could look for in the quantitative side of things in the sound recordings, we could look for those high-pitched responses. Like, do you get a strong echo at that high pitch somewhere up in a bird call, in a whistle? That could be an indicator of like, oh, maybe people are using musical instruments to acquire their song. I think another thing that we should look at is the iconography, the rock images themselves, the doctor's writing, so the petroglyphs and the pictographs. The difference being is that petroglyphs are carved in either by pegging or scratching or incising or abrading, versus pictographs are painted on, so there's some sort of pigment that's been applied either directly or along with a binder or other agents, and that's the difference between petroglyphs and pictographs. So if you look at the iconography, the images on there are cues for these songs as well, and some of these, like we've noticed, a few instances of a design that the local Paiute have identified as Ocean Woman's Net, and Ocean Woman is an important character in one of the versions of the origin of people stories, and so this is someone who is mentioned in the oral traditions that are, you know, the Paiute equivalent of the Book of Genesis, if you will, and so it invokes the passages of that song in the particular versions that might have been sung here. So this is something that I also observed at the Death Valley slot. Is there are references to that same oral tradition, actually, which in that area it would be the Timbisha Shoshone. And there's a story of coyote hunting. May I do a brief story?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This is just a synopsis.
You can do anything you want. This is your podcast.
So there are three versions of the origin of people story for the Nubik peoples. So like the Shoshone and Paiute and Waisu and Chippewa and the Ute. And the three versions are all allegories for coming of age. So the series 1, which is the story that I'm going to tell on here, is the boys' coming of age allegory. Series 2, which is a different plot line, is the girls' coming of age allegory, and the protagonist in that one is a girl. And Series 3 is the version in which Coyote becomes a shaman. That's a whole different story. But one and the same too. It also riffs on the motifs of Series 1 and Series 2. But to unpack the symbolism in that one would be a whole podcast in itself. So we're going to focus on series 1, the boy's coming of age story, and this is kind of pieced together from I'm pulling from the general ethnographies of the area. So this is not any one person's retelling. This is people. The synopsis of the retellings of people in a general circle of each other, just maybe 100 miles across or so. And it starts with Coyote is becoming self-sufficient. He's able to hunt rabbit and make rabbit skin blankets just fine. He's built a little wickiup or wigwam for himself. So he's got a shelter. He can feed himself. He's not hunting big game yet because he's not a man yet. He's still a boy because he's hunting rabbit. That's like everyone hunts rabbit. Children hunt rabbits. So he's got a rabbit skin blanket, and he looks out one day and sees a girl with a bunny tail. Very cute. We can all agree, very cute. So he's enamored and follows her and chases her around. Following his heart or some other piece of his anatomy, and she leads him on this whole long journey that ends up going all the way out to Big Water. Now, Big Water, it could be Lake Tulare in Central California. It could be the coast in Southern California, so like the Channel Coast. Probably depending on who's telling the story, but I think the general consensus among ethnographers is it's more likely the ocean. And so Coyote chases Quasacantun, the girl with the bunny tail, out to the ocean, and she and her mother live in a hut on an island. And when Coyote gets there, he notices a bunch of quivers leaning on the outside of the hut. So that means men have been here, but there's no men inside. It's not good, right? So he goes in, and the women are hungry. They want to eat Coyote. And I'm going to do just the PG version of this story. There's some really fun and explicit imagery that, So in order to satiate their hunger, Coyote goes out hunting, and he brings back a deer. And that's not enough. So he goes back out, and he brings an antelope.
But these are...
And that's still not enough.
Yeah, but these are leaps for him, because to date, he's only been able to hunt rabbit.
These are big leaps. Coyote isn't
because of the girl.
Yeah, because of the girl. Because Coyote's becoming a man, and he finally does that when he goes and hunts the bighorn sheep, and he brings it back. And it's with the bighorn sheep that Coyote is finally able to have kids with the girl with the bunny tail.
He impressed her.
And in some versions, he also impressed her mother as well.
Oh.
And some children are born. We can infer maybe 9 months later, give or take.
Yeah.
The women put the children in a basket and tell Coyote, go. They're crying. They're keeping us up. They're giving us a headache. Go. Take the children for a walk. So Coyote takes the children for a walk and crosses all parts of the desert and puts the people where they are at the time of the telling of the story. So he puts the Owens Valley Paiute in their place.
Oh, okay.
He comes to Mount Charleston, and he puts the Pahrump Paiute around that area, and many of the Southern Paiute peoples, that's where Coyote put them. And when he stops in Death Valley, he puts down his basket of children in Ubi-Hibi Crater, which is a volcanic crater at the north end of the valley. And people, he takes a nap, and people crawl out of the basket, and that's where you get the Timbisha.
Okay.
So stories like that are in the petroglyphs, and I found references to the imagery from that story in the petroglyphs at the Death Valley slot, and we're seeing references to Ocean Woman. Remember, he chases women to the ocean. We're seeing references to Ocean Woman here, so that shows that these oral histories are a part of the words that you might see in the iconography of the rock art, and that those words are then in the songs. There's another thing that we're in particular that I'm interested in looking at is the stuff that doesn't quite look like something yet. We get these abstract geometric forms that start to take the shape of something like a sheep. So you'll see a 7-legged sheep because the sheep is coming out of something.
Yeah.
We've got other people in the background here. But I'm gonna
Hi,
keep
guys.
talking. So we'll get 7-legged bighorn sheep because they're coming out of another image, an abstract geometric form that doesn't look like it. It's not figurative, but you get this figurative image coming out of it. Well, the same thing happens with the words, and this is part of how you get words from the song. Is the songs here have these things called vocables. They're rhythmic sound words. And some of them are just that. They're just a rhythmic song word without any meaning. But most vocables, they have a meaning. Like bighorn sheep, wasupane, has a couple of extra syllables added on to go along with beat, to go along with rhythm. And that's the word that you refer to bighorn sheep in the song. What I think it is that as people are being creative, they're intentionally engaging in that creative mindset when they're reaching out to whoever's on the other side of that snakeskin membrane of the rock. It's not always words. Sometimes you're just humming, you're beatboxing, you're in jazz, I think they call it scatting, right? It's rhythmic syllables. And then you start to hear the words come out of that, just like we get the images coming out of the figurative images coming out of the more abstract forms. And that's how you get your song. That's a part of what people are doing here, is they're coming here to acquire their song by singing at the rock, and either the rock singing back, or more likely something from the other side of the rock singing back.
And Yanni talks a lot about the other side of the rock. Yeah, that there's a lot going on there. Now, the other thing he talks about is that when something on the outside of the rock hits a crack, that it's then going inside of the rock, and it may come outside of the rock a mile, 2 miles, 5 miles away.
The knotted strings.
The knotted strings. There you go.
So I'm going to try to pull up the word for this. I think I have Yanni's presentation on my phone, and there's just a fun rhythmic word for this in Southern Paiute.
Wait, I'm going to go get my drink.
But these knotted strings for your listeners, imagine something like Inca kipu. We don't necessarily believe them to be as elaborate, but it's something along those lines. And they're very similar to something that's also mentioned in Pueblo history. In fact, we could call it proto-historic Pueblo. Also has references to knotted strings because it's how they were able to coordinate the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. So these knotted strings are starting to look like a very widespread phenomenon, and I think that makes something really exciting to say when we see these knotted strings and they go in and out of the rock, because those knotted strings hold information. We know that from the story of like the Pueblos doing the Pueblo Revolt. It's holding information. We know the Inca did some really elaborate stuff from that. I think we should be talking about these they're coming in and out of the rock. Are they coming out with more information? Are they coming out maybe to help with the song? Oh, I'm just posing a question.
Yeah.
That was kind of getting into the realm of conjecture, but the knotted strings are significant, and
well, they're everywhere, at least here.
And sometimes they're also referred to as prayer knots. So that significance is religious, and that's very much how we can also look at the songs. Is that these songs are like of religious significance. Like if you're singing about the journeys of Coyote or of Ocean Woman, then those also are significant.
Now, were there knotted strings in New Mexico? Or is that something that's...
I can think of one petroglyph with a knotted string. There's so at Mesa Prieta, there's a human figure with a box body holding what looks like a string of beads. It's probably a knotted string. And the way that the docents talk about it is it's not necessarily a petroglyph of the Pueblo Revolt itself, because we don't have an absolute date on it. But it invokes the same motifs as the story of the Pueblo Revolt. You have a person, possibly even a runner. You have holding the string with the knots in it.
Okay.
Like very clearly knots in it. It's depicted differently here. There it looks like beads. Here it looks like fringe. I think it used to be called the rake motif until we started.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the only one that comes to mind. And I've seen tens of thousands of petroglyphs in New Mexico. But maybe it's a design that I've seen quite a bit and didn't know how to identify. So maybe the one that looks like a string of beads is the outlier, and there's another way of depicting it that I haven't registered.
This is also interesting. I've really enjoyed the last few days. Well, I enjoy any time out here, but you've added something to it. So we're 50 minutes, and I normally try to keep it under an hour. I know we could talk for probably 40 hours. So has your research, has it changed the way you look at sound and music now?
Yeah, it's changed the way that I look at the world, that I look at people. The way that I look at sound and music as well. I'm definitely much more keenly attuned to sound, and I'll say like some environments I can even be more easily overwhelmed by sound now.
Okay.
Because I'm like listening more. And I have a strong personal connection to music too. Like we were driving back from the site today, and I was talking about like raving and dancing myself into a dizzy. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, strong personal connection to music too.
Do you think that in the prehistoric times here, did they view it as music, or was it just sounds? Were they making music?
Music is the highest form of oration. So, especially in Uto-Aztecan traditions, you've got just your basic oration. Then above that tier is poetry. And then above that tier is song.
Okay, don't tell poets that, because they think they're above song.
Poets still go to the flower world. Like, so this is the cool thing about like the Aztec is there's this notion of the flower world. It's where some people go when they die, like honored people. So like warriors go to the flower world when they die. So do poets. And I think putting poets on the level of warriors is a very beautiful thing.
So let's see, what else?
Shout out to Xochipilli.
Xochipilli?
It's an Aztec god of music. And
okay.
Quite a killer.
Okay. We're going to do some research then into that. So what kind of challenges do you have? Because I've seen your challenges. We're here and we haven't seen any rattlesnakes, but you got to be aware.
Where's Togowa?
You got to climb.
Yeah, I mean,
you got your hauling stuff.
Trying not to get sunburned.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I got my neck. It was a pleasure helping you, but you talk about some projects you've been on. You're bringing every bit as much equipment by yourself.
You know, there's been like once or twice that I've had the benefit of like having students join me, and then I can make them be the pack mules, but. Yeah, when that's not the case, like sometimes I have to bear down on the equipment. Sometimes it's like I'm carrying much more than what's the recommended maximum is like 40 pounds or something, and I'm carrying a lot more than that. we're going out there with the like really full setup today, and then if I'm doing this on my own, maybe I have 2 or 3 days, and one day is one setup and another day is another setup. So I'm kind of like spacing it out so it's not all the equipment all at once. I think the real challenge is rolling with it when the piece of equipment doesn't get out there.
Okay,
How are we really going to rely on this piece of equipment? So, like, how do we... So there was this acoustic test that we did at Mesa Prieta, and we were out there with the field school, and I checked that there were batteries in my audio recorder. I didn't check that they were still good, and I didn't bring a spare set. So I had to think on the fly. I was really kicking myself, but I had to think on the fly. All right, everyone, get out your phones. So now instead of having one audio recorder, we've got a dozen, and I had them hide in the rocks and all the little nooks and crannies in the rocks. Yeah. And we did 2 experiments. We did one for music. Is this space used for music? And we did one for hunting. Would you be able to hear the game coming and pop out of the little hiding nook? And the answer is yes to both. That, you could hide in here and make music, and it would be heard outside, and it seemed like it's coming from inside of the rock. Yeah. And also, you can hide in here and hear out, and hear when the game is coming, and be able to ambush it.
So, what's next for Chester?
Hopefully Poland. I submitted an abstract for a paper in a conference in Poland. In Poznan, I think, is the city, and being my ancestral homeland, I look forward to any opportunity.
Have you ever been?
I've been twice before. Yeah.
Okay.
I went in 2016. Started off as a trip to Berlin to see just what it was like as Syrian refugees. Germany was taking in millions of Syrian refugees, right? Or no, tens of thousands. Poland, in 2022, took in millions of Ukrainians, and that was when I went back to Poland for my second time. I wanted to see how it was going. I wanted to volunteer to help, but the Polish people really stepped up and just welcomed the Ukrainians into their homes. So, looking forward to how Poland's going to warm my heart this time.
Yeah, that's exciting. What is the same? We ask the same question for everybody. What's excited you? No, what's inspired you recently? This is pretty inspiring. I also have a friend who works on short stories just for fun, and so he texts me every couple of days, updates on his short stories. I find that inspiring. I think this is actually a question that we have a little electronic reminder of at work, actually. And so, my coworkers will post what they've recently been inspired by too. So, sometimes someone will post an article or a photo. One of my coworkers, Sarah, was out doing a botany tour, and posted just a bunch of the stuff that was in bloom up on the Columbia Plateau. So you guys as a group then share your inspiring stories.
We do, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So I was actually for what inspires me, I posted some of the ethnographic and archaeological work that's recently been done here in the Paranagat. Yeah. And shared that with my coworkers.
So that's great. I just think it's great that then you support each other by being interested in it.
Yes, that's important. That's what makes it a career and not a job.
So Chester, one more question then? Do you look forward to going to work every day?
Most days. Most days. Everyone has headache days. I think 4.5 out of 5 days.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah. There's it's a good job. It's sometimes it can be stressful, but it's a good job. I really do enjoy the job. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't. So yeah.
Because my kids used to make fun of me because I liked what I did, and every day I can think of 2 days in my AT&T 30-year career that I didn't want to go to work. Just 2 out of 30 years. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
I look forward to going.
Maybe I'm underselling because like there's no days that I'm like dreading going to work.
Well, it sounds like you're always doing something different.
Well, yeah.
It may be the same. Sound is sound, but each of these canyons is different. There's different angles. There's different music. There's different petroglyphs.
Even if you're doing like you basically like surface survey or trial excavation kind of CRM work, like every project is different, and that does motivate me.
Yes.
I think sometimes you're getting done and you just want the project to be done. Like you've done all the field work, you're finishing up writing a report, and I just want to close out the door. But even that's not a bad day.
Yeah.
That's still, but no, it's a lot of problem solving, and that's one of the things that I love about CRM, and that I love about this job in particular, because this job does give me a lot of variety. And as much as I'm doing the CRM, like I said, I'm also doing teaching and teaching indigenous folks how to like manage their own cultural heritage. So really helping them restore sovereignty over their own heritage, which it would be ideal if that sovereignty was already there. But just like helping facilitate.
But it's good that the younger generation is accepting that.
Yeah. It's really great. We're seeing a lot of tribal involvement. Up at Warm Springs, a lot of tribal involvement. I think back in the Pueblos too, because we were working closely with the Pueblos, especially Archaeoacoustics, and the youth were really engaged when we were running our summer youth programs, and that's something really heartening to see. And I think there's a lot of doom and gloom these days, and I think seeing even if it's like 4 youth or 8 youth getting engaged in history and science and learning, that gives me hope for the future.
Yes.
Yeah. I think there is hope. I think it's encouraging to see this engagement.
That's good. Chester, I really appreciate. I appreciate you being here this week and getting to meet you. But I appreciate you sitting down.
Thank you for inviting me. And
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Artbox Podcast. We're recording from our home studio inside the Mesquite Steam Center, right here in the beautiful Mojave Desert, where creativity and curiosity meet under wide open skies. From the written word and poetry to collage, brush art, pencil, ink, fabric, and pottery, from theater and song to archaeology in our public lands, we celebrate the many ways creativity shows up in the world around us. You can find us on Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Boomplay, or your favorite podcast app. We'd love to hear from you. Find us at theartboxpodcast.com. Drop us a note anytime at artboxvv@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, and subscribe. And don't forget to tell your friends so they can join the conversation too. Most importantly, take a moment to follow and support the artists and creative souls who join us here, because their stories are what make the Artbox come alive. This is Daisy, and until next time, keep creating, keep exploring, and keep sharing your story.